The first thing you need to know about my marriage is that it died on a Tuesday night while I was eating leftover pizza and watching Netflix in my underwear. The second thing you need to know is that I found out about it because my wife Elena forgot to take her burner phone to her business conference in Portland. I'm Carter Mays, 43 years old, IT manager at a mid-sized insurance firm in Millbrook, Maine. I fix computers, drive a 10-year-old Honda, and until last Tuesday, I thought I had a pretty decent life. Elena and I had been married 16 years, owned a nice colonial on Maple Street, and I genuinely believed we were happy. Shows what I know about anything. The phone buzzed twice on the kitchen counter while I was loading the dishwasher. Elena had been gone 3 days on what she called a critical marketing summit. I almost ignored it, but the screen lit up with a text preview that made my blood freeze. Can't wait to taste you again tomorrow night. Room 412. J. I stood there for a full minute, pizza grease still on my fingers, staring at that phone like it was a live grenade. Then it buzzed again. Bring the red lingerie I bought you. You looked incredible last time. My hands were shaking when I picked up the phone. No passcode. Elena always said she had nothing to hide. The irony wasn't lost on me as I scrolled through 3 months of messages that painted a very clear picture of my wife's extracurricular activities. Jay turned out to be Julian Cross, some hotshot creative director at a competing marketing firm in Portland. The photos they'd exchanged left nothing to my imagination. The plans they'd made for their future together, including leaving their respective spouses, were laid out in explicit detail. I was still standing in my kitchen in my boxers, holding evidence of my marriage's destruction, when I heard Elena's car in the driveway. She walked in with her usual confidence, designer heels clicking on the hardwood, pulling her rolling suitcase behind her. Hey, honey, I'm back early. The conference wrapped up ahead of schedule. How was Portland? I asked, still holding her phone. She froze when she saw it in my hands. For just a second, her composed mask slipped, and I saw something that might have been panic. Then, the mask snapped back into place. Carter, what are you doing with my phone? Learning about your conference activities, turns out Julian Cross gives very detailed presentations. Elena's face went pale, then flushed red. It's not what you think. I laughed, and the sound surprised even me. It was bitter and sharp, nothing like my usual chuckle. Really? Because I think you've been screwing Julian Cross for 3 months, planning to leave me and lying about business trips. Am I wrong about any of that? She tried the gaslighting approach first. You're being paranoid. Julian is a colleague. Those messages are taken out of context. I held up the phone and read directly from one of her texts. I can't wait to leave Carter. He's so boring compared to you. Last night was incredible. I came 3 times. I looked up at her. What's the context there, Elena? Market research? Her face crumpled for a moment, then hardened. Fine. Yes, I'm seeing Julian. But you drove me to it, Carter. When was the last time you took me anywhere nice? When did you last surprise me with anything? You've gotten lazy and comfortable, and I deserve better. So, you decided to cheat instead of talking to me about it. I tried talking to you. You never listen. You just grunt and go back to your computer or your TV shows. I set her phone down carefully on the counter. Pack your things, Elena. Get out of my house. Our house, she corrected, and I'm not going anywhere. If you want a divorce, we'll do it properly, through lawyers. Actually, it's my house. My name is on the mortgage. Yours isn't, remember? You wanted to keep your credit separate. I smiled, and it felt like baring teeth. Funny how that works out. Elena's eyes went wide. In all our years together, she'd never seen me assert myself like this. I'd always been the accommodating husband, the one who went along to get along. Carter, let's be reasonable about this. We can work through. Get out. My voice was quiet but firm. Take whatever you can carry tonight. We'll figure out the rest through lawyers. She stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed her purse and headed for the stairs. This isn't over, Carter. I have rights. So did I called after her. Didn't stop you from screwing Julian Cross in hotel rooms on my dime. 20 minutes later, she was gone with 2 suitcases and a face full of rage. I poured myself a whiskey, the good stuff Elena had bought for impressing her work friends, and sat in my living room, planning my next move. Because here's the thing Elena didn't know about me. I might be boring, but I'm not stupid, and I'm definitely not the kind of man who gets cheated on and just quietly fades away. I was going to make them both pay for what they'd done to me. Not physically, I'm not a violent man, but there are other ways to destroy someone's life, and I was about to become very creative. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to downtown Millbrook to see Miles Garrett, my oldest friend and the best private investigator in central Maine. Miles had been a cop for 15 years before starting his own agency, and he specialized in matrimonial investigations. Lucky me. His office was above a coffee shop on Main Street, a cramped space filled with filing cabinets and computer equipment. Miles looked up when I walked in, took one look at my face, and reached for his coffee pot. "Elena?" he asked, pouring me a cup without waiting for an answer. "How'd you know? You look like every other cheated-on husband who's walked through that door. Plus, I saw her having lunch with some pretty boy at Marcello's last week. Didn't look like a business meeting." I filled him in on everything. The phone, the messages, Julian Cross, the whole sordid story. Miles took notes and nodded in all the right places. "So, what do you want from me?" he asked when I finished. "Everything. Julian's background, his finances, his habits, his weaknesses. Elena's too. I want to know every secret they've got." Miles leaned back in his chair. "Carter, I've known you since high school. You're not the revenge type. You sure you want to go down this road? They made the choice for me when they decided to humiliate me behind my back. I'm just evening the score." "All right, but we do this clean. No breaking and entering, no illegal surveillance, nothing that'll get us arrested. I've got a license to protect." "Agreed. But I want them destroyed, Miles. Professionally, socially, financially. I want them to regret the day they decided to mess with Carter Mays." Miles grinned. "Now you're talking my language. Give me a week." While Miles worked his magic, I started my own investigation. I'd been managing computer networks for 20 years, and I knew how to find information online. Julian Cross had a significant digital footprint, and most of it painted him as exactly the kind of guy I'd expected. Arrogant, flashy, and careless with his personal information. He lived in a trendy loft apartment in Portland's Arts District, drove a white Tesla Model S, and had a social media presence that screamed, "Look at me!" His Instagram was full of expensive restaurants, craft cocktails, and photos of himself working out. He'd been tagged at various events around Portland, always with different women, always looking like he thought he was God's gift to humanity. Elena featured in exactly 0 of his public posts, which told me everything I needed to know about how serious he was about their relationship. She was a side piece, a married woman he could use for sex while keeping his options open. The thought made my anger burn hotter. I also discovered that Julian had an ex-girlfriend named Gemma, who ran a popular lifestyle blog called Maine Life Elevated. Her Instagram had over 50,000 followers, and she'd recently posted some cryptic messages about fake people and users who think they're players. Interesting. On Thursday, Miles called with his preliminary report. "Your boy Julian is leveraged up to his eyeballs," he said. "That fancy apartment, the Tesla, the designer clothes, it's all financed. He's living paycheck to paycheck trying to maintain his image. What about Elena? That's where it gets interesting. She's been moving money around Carter. Small amounts, but consistent. Looks like she's been skimming from your joint accounts for months, building up a nest egg." My jaw clenched. "How much?" "About 12,000 so far. All moved to a personal account you're not on. She's been planning this for a while. Can we get it back? Legally. Maybe in the divorce. But there might be other ways to handle it. I'm listening. Give me a few more days. I'm working on something." That weekend, Elena's sister Sloane called me. Sloane had never liked me. She thought Elena had married beneath her, and she wasted no time making her position clear. "Carter, Elena told me what happened. I think you're being completely unreasonable." "Unreasonable?" "She cheated on me, Sloane, for months. Marriage is complicated. People make mistakes. Elena says you've been neglecting her for years." I almost laughed. "So it's my fault she decided to have an affair?" I'm just saying, maybe if you'd paid more attention to your wife, she wouldn't have looked elsewhere for companionship. Companionship? Is that what we're calling it now? Sloane's voice got sharp. Don't be crude, Carter. Elena made an error in judgment, but she's willing to work things out. You're the one being stubborn. Tell you what, Sloane, when your husband starts screwing around behind your back, you can take your own advice about working things out. Until then, stay out of my marriage. You'll regret this, Carter. Elena has options. You don't. She hung up, but her words stuck with me. Elena had options, and she had allies. People who would take her side and paint me as the bad guy. I was going to need allies of my own. That's when I remembered Doreen Walsh, our neighbor across the street. Doreen was 72, retired, and spent most of her time walking her ancient beagle around the neighborhood. She saw everything that happened on Maple Street, and she loved to talk about it. I found her in her front yard that Sunday afternoon, deadheading roses. Carter, how are you holding up, dear? I saw Elena leave with those suitcases the other night. We're getting divorced, Doreen. She was having an affair. Doreen's eyes lit up with the kind of excitement that only comes from premium neighborhood gossip. I knew something was going on. All those late nights, the new clothes, the way she started parking in the garage so I couldn't see when she came and went. You noticed all that? Honey, I've been watching this street for 40 years. I know when someone's up to no good. That woman's been acting guilty for months. Would you be willing to testify to that? In divorce proceedings, I mean. Absolutely. Elena always thought she was too good for this neighborhood anyway. About time someone knocked her down a peg. By Sunday night, I had a plan forming. Elena and Julian thought they were dealing with boring, predictable Carter Mays. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Miles called Monday morning with news that made me smile for the first time in a week. I found Julian's weakness, he said. Remember that ex-girlfriend with the blog? Gemma Richardson? Turns out she's still got it bad for our boy. And she's not happy about being dumped. How do you know? I may have struck up a conversation with her at a coffee shop, bought her a latte, listened to her vent about her ex. She's got photos, Carter, lots of them, including some that would be very embarrassing if they went public. What kind of photos? Let's just say Julian likes to document his conquests, and he's not always careful about who he shares them with. I felt a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. Can we get copies? Already done. Gemma was very cooperative once she learned Julian was cheating on his current girlfriend with a married woman. Apparently, that hit a nerve. Perfect. What else? Elena's been busy too. She took a personal day Friday and spent it apartment hunting in Portland. Looks like she's planning to move in with Loverboy. Over my dead body. That's the spirit. So what's our first move? I'd been thinking about that all weekend. We start with Julian's reputation. That seems to be what he values most. I'm listening. His company is Pinnacle Creative, right? They do marketing for high-end clients, restaurants, boutiques, that kind of thing. Image is everything in that business. True. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Julian's clients might be interested to know what kind of man they're trusting with their brand image. Miles was quiet for a moment. That's actually brilliant and completely legal. I've learned a few things about reputation management over the years. Time to put that knowledge to use. That evening, I created several anonymous email accounts and began crafting messages to Julian's biggest clients. I didn't lie or make false accusations. I simply shared publicly available information about his character and judgment. To the owner of Portland's most exclusive restaurant, I thought you should know that your marketing director, Julian Cross, has been conducting an affair with a married woman and documenting their encounters on social media. Is this the kind of judgment you want representing your family establishment? To the boutique that hired him to attract upscale female customers, Julian Cross has been sharing intimate photos of women without their consent. Several of his ex-girlfriends are considering legal action. You might want to reconsider your association with him. I sent similar messages to 6 of his major clients, each one factual and devastating. Then, I sat back and waited. The results were better than I'd hoped. By Wednesday, Julian had lost 3 clients, and word was spreading through Portland's tight-knit creative community that he was bad news. His Instagram posts, once confident and boastful, became defensive and angry. But the real satisfaction came when Elena called me furious. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Julian's career's falling apart. His clients are dropping him left and right. That's terrible. Maybe he should have thought about that before he started sleeping with married women. "You're destroying an innocent man's livelihood," I laughed, and this time it felt good. "Innocent? Elena, he's been screwing my wife for 3 months. That's not exactly innocent behavior." "This is harassment, Carter. I'll call the police." "Go ahead. I haven't done anything illegal. I've just shared some information with people who have a right to know about Julian's character." She was quiet for a moment. Then, her voice got dangerous. "You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what you're dealing with. Julian has friends, Carter. Important friends. And I have information about you that could ruin your career too. Such as that little side business you've been running, fixing computers for cash under the table. The IRS might be very interested in that unreported income." My blood went cold. She was right. I'd been doing freelance IT work for years, and I hadn't always been perfect about reporting every dollar. It wasn't a lot of money, but it could cause problems. "You'd really do that? Destroy me financially just to protect your boyfriend? You started this war, Carter. Don't cry when you start losing battles." She hung up and I sat in my kitchen, realizing that Elena was more dangerous than I'd given her credit for. She was willing to play dirty, which meant I needed to be ready to do the same. I called Miles immediately. "We need to escalate," I told him. "Elena's threatening to come after my business. Time to take the gloves off." "What do you have in mind?" "Remember that money she's been moving around? I want it back, all of it. Plus, interest. Carter, if we're going to play hardball, we need to be very careful. One mistake and we could both end up in jail. Then we don't make mistakes. How quickly can you get me everything you have on both of them?" "Give me until tomorrow night. And Carter, once we cross this line, there's no going back. You sure you want to do this?" I thought about Elena's threat, about Julian's smug face in those photos, about the way they'd both betrayed me and then tried to make it my fault. "I'm sure," I said. "It's time to show them what happens when you mess with Carter Mays." Thursday brought unexpected reinforcements. I was having lunch at Murphy's Pub when Mick Sullivan, the bartender, slid into the booth across from me. "Heard you're having some trouble with the missus," he said without preamble. Mick was one of those guys who knew everything that happened in Millbrook. He'd been tending bar for 30 years, and people told him things they wouldn't tell their priests. "Word travels fast," I said. "Elena's been in here twice this week, crying into her wine about how unfairly you're treating her. Real sob story about her poor boyfriend losing his job because of your jealousy." "And you believed her?" Mick snorted. "Hell no. I've seen that woman in action. She's been coming in here for months with different guys, always when she thought no one from the neighborhood would see her. Your boy Julian wasn't the first, Carter. Just the most recent." I set down my beer carefully. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your wife's been cheating on you for at least a year, maybe longer. Julian's just the one who got caught." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. I'd thought Julian was a mistake, a moment of weakness that had grown into something more. But Elena had been systematically betraying me for months, maybe years. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because Elena's been bad-mouthing you all over town, trying to make herself look like the victim. And because I've always liked you, Carter. You're a straight shooter. She's not. Would you be willing to testify about what you've seen?" "Absolutely. And I've got security footage going back 2 years. Amazing what people do when they think no one's watching." I shook Mick's hand, feeling like I'd just gained a crucial ally. But my good mood didn't last long. That afternoon, my boss Dave called me into his office. Dave Henderson was a decent guy who'd always treated me fairly, but he looked uncomfortable as I sat down. "Carter, I got a call today from Elena. She's concerned about your mental state." "My mental state?" "She says you've been harassing her boyfriend, sending threatening messages to his employer, acting erratically. She thinks you might be having some kind of breakdown, I felt my anger rising, but kept my voice calm. Dave, Elena's been having an affair for months. We're getting divorced. She's trying to discredit me because I caught her. I figured it was something like that. But Carter, I have to ask, have you been using company resources for personal business? Elena mentioned something about you using our systems to investigate her. I used my own laptop, on my own time, from my own home. I've never mixed company business with personal issues. Dave looked relieved. Good. That's what I told her. But Carter, be careful. A messy divorce can affect your work, and I need you focused. Understood. Thanks for having my back, Dave. Just keep your nose clean, all right? Elena sounded like she was looking for ammunition. As I drove home, I realized Elena was already implementing her strategy. Isolate me, discredit me, make me look like the unstable one. She was smarter than I'd given her credit for, and more ruthless, but two could play that game. That evening, Miles came by with a thick folder and a grim expression. This is everything I could dig up on both of them, he said, spreading documents across my kitchen table. And Carter, some of this is pretty ugly. How ugly? Julian's got a history of this. 3 previous relationships that ended when he got caught cheating. One woman filed a restraining order against him for harassment. Another one accused him of stealing money from her purse. What about Elena? Miles hesitated. You sure you want to know? Tell me. She's been planning this for over a year. The affair with Julian started 8 months ago, but she's been moving money, copying documents, even consulting with a divorce attorney since last Christmas. I stared at him. She's been planning to leave me since Christmas? It gets worse. She's been building a case against you, documenting every argument, every time you had a beer with dinner, every weekend you spent working on the house instead of taking her out. She's got a whole file on you, Carter. The betrayal was complete. While I'd been living my life, thinking we were happy, Elena had been systematically planning my destruction. There's more, Miles continued. She's been telling people you're controlling, that you monitor her phone and computer, that you've threatened her physically. That's complete bullshit. I know that, and you know that. But she's got witnesses, her sister, some friends from work, even your neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Mrs. Patterson barely knows me. Elena's been working on this for months, Carter. She's been setting you up to look like the bad guy so she can take you for everything in the divorce. I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed by the scope of Elena's deception. She hadn't just cheated on me. She'd been waging a psychological war against me for months, without me even knowing it. So what do we do? I asked. Miles smiled, and it wasn't a nice expression. We fight fire with fire. I've got enough evidence here to destroy both of them. The question is, how far you want to take it? All the way, I said without hesitation. They wanted to play games? Let's show them what happens when they mess with someone who's got nothing left to lose. All right then. Here's what we're going to do. Miles laid out a plan that was elegant in its simplicity and devastating in its potential impact. We were going to use Elena's own tactics against her, turn her allies into enemies, and expose every dirty secret she and Julian had. By the time he left that night, I felt like a different person. The hurt, betrayed husband was gone, replaced by someone harder and more focused. Elena had made me into her enemy, and she was about to learn what a dangerous mistake that had been. The war was just beginning. The annual Millbrook Fall Festival was the perfect stage for what I had planned. Half the town would be there, including Elena's friends, Julian's professional contacts, and everyone who'd been watching our marriage implode with varying degrees of sympathy and schadenfreude. Miles and I had spent 2 weeks preparing. We had documentation of Elena's affair, evidence of her financial manipulation, proof of Julian's pattern of predatory behavior, and testimonies from multiple witnesses. But more importantly, we had leverage. Gemma Richardson had been more helpful than we dared hope. Her breakup with Julian had been messy, and she'd kept receipts, literally. Photos, videos, financial records, even recordings of phone calls where Julian bragged about his conquests and his plans to trade up from Elena once he got tired of her. The festival was in full swing when I arrived Saturday afternoon. Elena was working the Pinnacle Creative booth with Julian, trying to drum up new business to replace the clients he'd lost. They looked tense, their smiles forced as they handed out brochures to disinterested passersby. I walked past their booth twice, just to let them know I was there. Elena's face went pale when she saw me, and Julian actually took a step back. Good. They should be nervous. My first stop was the information booth, where Sloane was volunteering. Elena's sister had been one of her most vocal supporters, spreading the narrative that I was an abusive, controlling husband who'd driven Elena into another man's arms. Hello, Sloane, I said pleasantly. Beautiful day for the festival. She looked up from her clipboard with barely concealed hostility. Carter, I'm surprised to see you here. Why? This is my town, too. I've lived here longer than Elena has. Elena told me you've been harassing her. That's not the Carter I thought I knew. I smiled. You're right. The Carter you knew was a pushover who let people walk all over him. That Carter's gone. What's that supposed to mean? I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. It means I know about Elena's other affairs, Sloane. Not just Julian, the others. The bartender in Portland, the contractor who worked on our kitchen, that salesman from her conference in Boston. Did she tell you about all of them, or just Julian? Sloane's face went white. You're lying. Am I? Ask Mick Sullivan. He's got security footage going back 2 years. Your sister's been busier than you think. I walked away, leaving Sloane staring after me with her mouth open. The first crack in Elena's support system was forming. My next stop was the beer tent, where I found several of Julian's former colleagues drowning their sorrows. Word had spread through Portland's creative community that Julian was toxic, and his reputation was in free fall. Carter Mays, I introduced myself to a group of advertising executives. I believe you know my wife Elena and her boyfriend Julian Cross. One of them, a woman named Patricia, nodded grimly. We know Julian. Used to work with him before his issues came to light. What kind of issues? Harassment, mainly. Several women have come forward about his behavior. Inappropriate comments, unwanted advances, sharing private photos. The man's a predator. I nodded sympathetically. Elena's been trying to convince people that I'm the problem in our marriage. But it's hard to be objective when you're in love with someone, isn't it? Your wife's in love with Julian Cross? Patricia looked disgusted. She might want to reconsider. Word is he's got serious financial problems, too. Owes money all over town. Really? Elena's been very secretive about their relationship. I had no idea he was in financial trouble. By the time I left the beer tent, Julian's reputation had taken another hit. The advertising community was small and gossipy, and by evening everyone would know that Elena Mays was involved with a man who was both a sexual predator and financially irresponsible. But the real show was about to begin. At 4 o'clock, the festival's main stage hosted a community spotlight segment where local businesses could present their services. Julian had signed up weeks earlier, back when he still had clients and confidence. I positioned myself in the crowd as Julian took the microphone, Elena standing supportively beside him. He launched into his prepared presentation about Pinnacle Creative's innovative marketing solutions, but I could see the sweat on his forehead, the way his eyes kept darting through the crowd, looking for threats. Halfway through his presentation, I started applauding loudly. That's great, Julian. Tell them about your innovative approach to client relationships. Julian stumbled over his words, thrown off by the interruption. Thank you. As I was saying, especially your hands-on approach with married clients, I called out. Very personal service. The crowd was starting to murmur, sensing drama. Elena grabbed Julian's arm, whispering urgently in his ear. But Julian's ego wouldn't let him back down. Sir, I don't know what you're implying, but I'm not implying anything, I said, stepping forward so everyone could see me. I'm stating facts. You've been sleeping with my wife for 8 months. You've been planning to help her steal my assets in our divorce. And you've been bragging about it to anyone who'll listen. The crowd went dead silent. Elena's face was bright red, and Julian looked like he was about to faint. That's not true, Julian stammered into the microphone. Really? I pulled out my phone and held it up. Because I have recordings of you describing exactly what you plan to do to me. Would you like me to play them for everyone? Julian stepped back from the microphone, but I wasn't done. Elena, I called to my wife, would you like to tell everyone how long you've been planning this? Or should I share the timeline Miles put together from your financial records? Elena finally found her voice. Carter, you're making a scene. This isn't the place. This is exactly the place, I interrupted. You wanted to destroy my reputation in this town. You wanted everyone to think I was the bad guy. So let's give them all the facts and let them decide. I turned to address the crowd directly. My wife has been systematically cheating on me for over a year. She's been stealing money from our joint accounts to fund her affairs. She's been lying to friends and neighbors about our marriage to build sympathy for herself. And she's been planning to take me for everything I'm worth in our divorce while painting me as an abusive husband. The murmur from the crowd was growing louder. I could see phones coming out, people starting to record. But here's what Elena didn't count on, I continued. She didn't count on me fighting back. She didn't count on her boyfriend's other victims coming forward. And she definitely didn't count on me having evidence of everything she's done. I held up a thick manila envelope. Financial records, phone records, witness statements, photographs, even video evidence of their affair. All of it documented, all of it admissible in court. Elena was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Julian had abandoned the microphone entirely and was trying to push through the crowd toward the exit. The truth is, I said, my voice carrying clearly across the silent festival grounds, Elena Mays is a liar, a cheat, and a thief. Julian Cross is a predator who's used and discarded multiple women, and together, they thought they could destroy me and walk away clean. I smiled, and it felt like the most genuine expression I'd worn in months. They were wrong. The crowd erupted. Some people were cheering, others were booing. Everyone was talking at once. Elena fled the stage, pushing through the crowd with Julian close behind her. I could see Sloane trying to follow them, her face a mask of shock and betrayal. Miles appeared at my elbow, grinning broadly. Well, that was subtle. Subtle was never going to work with Elena. She respects strength and she despises weakness. Time she learned which one I really am. So, what's next? I looked around at the chaos I'd created, at the phones recording everything, at the faces of people who would spread this story all over town by morning. Next, we finish it. Elena wanted to play games with my reputation and my finances. Now she gets to see what happens when someone with nothing left to lose decides to go all in.